Hello everyone, welcome to another episode If You Could Hide to Kolob podcast. My name's Daniel, this is my brother Clive.
Hello everybody and welcome to a very special episode. Today we're going to be talking about President Nelson. It's his birthday coming up, he's turning 100 years old, oldest prophet that we've had. So what an incredible time, and we just thought this would be a great opportunity for us to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So President Nelson was born on the September the 9th in way back in 1924, such a long time ago. And I was trying to think about what are some of the special things that were happening around 1924 when President Nelson was born. And in fact, the church here in Australia was experiencing significant growth. Marion G. Romney had just finished his mission. David O. McKay had actually just visited the country. And really, importantly, a few milestones had occurred. So in Melbourne, in 1922, the Melbourne Chapel was built. But the church wasn't officially recognized. And so it wasn't until 1923 that people were able to get married in the chapel. And it wasn't until 1924, the year of President Nelson's birth, that the marriages were actually gazetted. So in Australia in particular, this time frame was very, very significant in our history. The chapel in Perth, in Subiaco, that had recently been built. And in fact, back in 2016, that chapel still stands now and was heritage listed. So in the Australian history, this time was really, really important to us.
Right, that's amazing. What about American history? Who was the prophet at the time?
Heber J. Grant was a prophet at the time.
Right.
He served from 1918 way up to 1945. And I was thinking, actually, that's a good point. I was thinking about how important that was for Heber J. Grant with the upbringing that he had, and how important it was for him to be the president of the church at that time. We just came out of World War I, a huge economic disaster, and then, of course, we went into World War II. And I can't help but think that President Nelson, of his upbringing and his knowledge, for him being the president of the church during the COVID-19 pandemic, the Come Follow Me was put out under his direction way before the COVID, and then we went into this period. And President Nelson leading the church at that time, I think, is remarkable and certainly not a coincidence.
No, definitely. I mean, he's had such an incredible life as well. Obviously, all the new policies that he's brought into place with the Come Follow Me, obviously, new revelation is what it seems. But even in his personal life, he has always been blessed through his life. He's an incredible surgeon. He was a heart surgeon for much of his life. He only retired when he was called to the apostleship, and only then he went back once to do surgery on someone that requested it, an opera singer that requested it. So actually, him and his wife invented this machine for open heart surgery. It was actually for heart and lung surgery, small and compact enough to fit in an operating theatre. It's a thing like that had never been invented before. And because of it, so many lives have been saved. He was able to operate on Spencer W. Kimball before he was a prophet. He was the first person to operate and do open heart surgery in Utah at the time. Only 2 other states were doing it. So in his personal life alone, what an incredible experience for him that he's able to have.
And so well known. I saw at the time President Trump, was president of the United States at the time. We was talking to President Nelson and Elder Eyring as well, and he said he's one of the best heart surgeons in the world. So he's so well known. The only other thing I thought I would talk about, Clive, is just how old presidents of this church can become. Right. Wilford Woodruff died at the age of 88, I think it was. At the time, the average death in America was 49 years old. Lorenzo Snow succeeded him as president of the church. I think he might have been 91. So President Nelson living to 100 shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Presidents of this church last a long time.
Because of that, he's had 10 children. He's had 9 daughters and 1 son. And, you imagine the growth from that, getting to this ripe old age now, the growth of his family.
Well, I think he's had more than 100 great-grandchildren, right? Like, incredible. Another story, Clive, speaking of him and his family, he gives this, he's got an incredible journal entry that was written by his grandfather. And his grandfather says at one point he was laying in his bed, and his grandfather had visited him, who had recently passed away. And he came and spoke to him about what life was like in the spirit world. He actually talked to him for a very long time, and all of this information's recorded. President Nelson's grandfather asked his dad, do you know I'm here all the time? Do you always visit me? And he says, he almost says, well, I'm actually far too busy to worry about you. There's so much work to be done in the spirit world, and I'm not always watching you. So a really incredible family, and with some incredible stories as well. So I think we're just so blessed to have President Nelson with us. And for this reason, that he's been able to last till he's 100 years old, to be guiding the church now is just an incredible blessing for all of us.
Yeah, and I guess, since he's been the prophet, he's announced so many temples, over 100 temples since he's been prophet. The blessings that he's to provide for this world, you can just tell that he's called of God. And what an incredible time for us to be alive, to be able to see this president go on and continue on with this legacy and this priesthood.
That's right. His think celestial. Yep. Something he's said to us, think celestial. Back in 1984, when he was first called, he talked about his inadequacies to fill the calling of the apostleship, but talked then about his faith in Jesus Christ. And he's always been thinking celestial and asking us to think celestial, and what a message we can take from him. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of If You Could Hide to Kolob. Happy birthday, President Nelson. We will see you next week for another episode. Thank you.